When Jasmine Crockett calls out Pam Bondi during her November live stream, you think you can predict the direction she's heading? But the moment she drops her next revelation, the GOP is thrown into a frenzy behind closed doors because she exposes a secret the Attorney General is desperate to keep buried. Before we break down how Jasmine Crockett used a laid-back live stream to completely undermine Pam Bondi's credibility and expose the disorder spreading inside the Justice Department, make sure you smash that subscribe button because this story dives into sealed documents, dysfunctional leadership, and the moment when sheer mockery became the most powerful oversight tool in Washington. The live stream began exactly the way Crockett's usually do: relaxed, conversational, and almost deceptively casual. The Congresswoman was sitting in what looked very much like her home office, speaking straight to her viewers like she was catching up with friends rather than launching into a political takedown. She had been doing these streams more regularly, usually talking about new legislation, responding to constituent issues, or giving commentary on the week's political chaos. But no one watching that day had any idea they were about to witness a political detonation. "Y'all, there's something that's been weighing on me," Crockett began, adjusting her camera and settling back into her chair with the kind of posture that told everyone she wasn't filtering a single word that was about to leave her mouth. "I need to talk about Pam Bondi, because the more I see what's happening inside the Justice Department, the clearer it becomes that we have a real problem. And I'm not talking about disagreements over policy. I'm talking about basic competence or the absolute lack of it." She paused, like she was choosing her words carefully. But her expression made it obvious she knew exactly what she was about to reveal and had simply been waiting for the perfect moment to drop it. "So let me explain what's actually going on behind the scenes with the Epstein files," she continued. "Because the public version and the real version, completely different. Publicly, DOJ has been saying they're reviewing materials, following protocols, doing everything by the book. But behind the curtain, chaos, absolute, unorganized chaos. And according to Crockett, Pam Bondi is right at the heart of it." The chat exploded instantly. But Crockett kept going unfazed. "Here's what I'm hearing from people inside DOJ," she said. "And before anyone starts asking, no, I'm not naming sources because these people would lose their jobs for being honest. But according to them, there is no real plan for how to handle the Epstein files. Departments are receiving conflicting instructions. Timelines change every week. People who should have clearance can't get access. And people who absolutely shouldn't have access somehow do." She leaned in, her voice sharpening, and you might think, well, maybe it's just normal new administration chaos. But let's be real, Pam Bondi is not new to government. She was Florida's Attorney General for 8 years. She claims she knows how to run a law enforcement operation. So why does DOJ under her leadership look like a circus act, especially with one of the most sensitive investigations on their plate? Crockett checked something on her phone notes. "Let me give you an example," she said. 3 weeks ago, it was supposed to be a classified briefing for the Congressional Oversight Committees on the status of the Epstein files review. Totally standard procedure. DOJ briefs Congress. We ask questions. Everyone stays informed. The briefing was canceled last minute. No explanation. Just scheduling conflict. We'll reschedule. 2 weeks later, they tried again. Canceled again. Now it's week 3. No briefing. No update. No transparency. Nothing. She set down her phone and stared directly into the camera. And when members of Congress like me ask why, what do we get told? The Attorney General is personally overseeing the review and will update you when appropriate. That's it. That's the whole response. So, in other words, trust Pam Bondi and wait. "Well, I don't trust Pam Bondi," Crockett said flatly. "And after what I've learned, none of you should either." Viewership skyrocketed. The chat was a blur. People were sharing the stream in every political corner of social media. Crockett didn't even glance at the comments. She was locked in now. "Let me explain why I don't trust her," she continued, shifting into a tone more like a prosecutor building a case. Pam Bondi has a track record. A real one? A history of making decisions based on political advantage, not legal principle. She reminded viewers of when Bondi's office in Florida was investigating Trump. University until the investigation suddenly evaporated right after. Trump's foundation donated to Bondi's political committee. "People can argue all they want that it was cleared," Crockett said, "but the pattern is undeniable. Money went one way. The investigation went the other." She held up a hand before critics could jump in. "This matters because that pattern shows Bondi's decisions magically line up with what benefits her politically. And now she's managing files that could implicate powerful people, including members of the administration she works for. You understand the problem, right?" she continued, pulling up more notes. Career prosecutors who had spent years working Epstein-related cases, people with expertise, relationships with victims, deep knowledge, were being removed, reassigned, replaced by political loyalists with minimal prosecution experience. And who's behind those decisions? She asked. Pam Bondi's office. She looked genuinely disgusted. "That's not how you run a real investigation. That's how you run a cover-up." Political Twitter immediately lit up. Journalists began calling DOJ sources. Within half an hour, newsrooms were confirming unusual personnel shifts and unexplained briefing delays. But Crockett still wasn't finished. "You want to know the wildest part?" she asked. Republicans yes, have reached out to me privately to say they're concerned about how Bondi's handling this. They won't say it publicly, of course. They can't cross the administration. But behind the scenes, they're just as worried." She sighed. "And to be fair, managing sensitive law enforcement files is difficult. Confidentiality matters. Thorough review matters. I'm not saying dump everything publicly tomorrow. But there's a massive difference between being careful and being chaotic. What we're seeing right now is chaos, and whether Bondi is incompetent or deliberately causing disarray to protect certain people. Either way, it's a problem." Crockett paused, took a sip of water, and then delivered the line that would get quoted everywhere. "Here's my message to the Attorney General," she said. "And I'm saying this publicly, since she's definitely not taking my calls. Pam, if y'all were doing your jobs properly, we wouldn't be here. If you were running a transparent review, briefing Congress like you're required to, and letting career prosecutors do their work without political interference, none of this would be happening. But instead, you're blocking oversight, making corrupt-looking personnel decisions, and hoping no one notices." She leaned back, her expression shifting into something that almost resembled amusement. "But here's the thing, Pam. People do notice. People do care. And every time you cancel a briefing, every time you reassign a career prosecutor, every time you ignore basic questions about these files, you're making it more obvious that you have something to hide. You're not protecting the integrity of an investigation. You're protecting people. We don't want that investigation to go where the evidence leads." The live stream continued for another 20 minutes with Crockett taking questions from commenters and expanding on her concerns about DOJ's handling of various matters. But the damage to Bondi's credibility been done. Within hours, Bond incompetence was trending. News outlets were running stories about the delayed congressional briefings and the personnel changes Crockett had mentioned. And multiple Democratic burrs of Congress were releasing statements demanding that the Attorney General provide immediate clarity about Epstein files review process. The White House response came through Appress's aide, who dismissed Crockett's allegations as political theater from a partisan member who's more interested in headlines than facts. But notably, the statement didn't actually address any oft-specific claims Crockett had made. It didn't explain why briefings had been canceled. It didn't address the personnel changes. It was classic deflection. Attack the messenger. Ignoreth message. Pam Bondi herself stayed silent for 2 days. When she finally addressed the controversy during a routine press availability about an unrelated matter, her response was to ran defensive. I'm not going to respond to every baseless allegation from members of Congress who clearly have political motivations, she said when a reporter asked about Crockett's stream. The Justice Department is conducting its work professionally and appropriately. We'll provide information to Congress when it's appropriate to do so. The answer satisfied no one. Even conservative legal analysts who generally supported the administration said that Bond's response was inadequate and that the lack of transparency was becoming a problem, whether or not you agree with Representative Crockett-Stecher. She's raised legitimate questions about process and oversight that deserve substantive answers. One former Republican DOJ official told Fox News, disarming those questions as political theater doesn't make them go away. Behind the scenes, according to multiple sources who speak to various news outlets, the situation inside DOJ was exactly as chaotic as Crockett had described. One whistleblower told the Washington Post, "There's no clear chain of command for the Epstein materials review. Multiple people think they're in charge. Nobody wants to make decisions best. They're afraid of political fluido." Another described an environment where career staff are to do their jobs properly because they don't know if doing the right thing legally will get them fired politically. The situation came to a head 2 weeks after Crockett's live stream when a federal judge, responding to a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit from a media coalition, ordered DOJ to explain why certain Epstein-related documents that should have been released under previous court orders remain sealed. In their filing, DOJ claimed to think we're conducting ongoing review of materials, but they couldn't provide a timeline for when that review would be completed or what criteria they were using to determine what should remain sealed. The judge was not impressed. In a ruling that legal observers described as unusually sharp, she wrote that the court finds the government's explanation inadequate and its delays unjustified. The lack of coherent process and clear timelines suggest exogenity at best and obstruction at worst. She gave DOJ 30 days to produce a detailed plan for reviewing and releasing appropriate materials, with regular status reports to the court. Jasmine Crockett responded to the judge's ruling with a statement that was equal parts vindication and renewed criticism. A federal judge just confirmed what I said 2 weeks ago. DOJ's handling of the Epstein files is Ames's. Pam Bondi's leadership is failing, and the lack of transparency isn't about protecting investigations or victims. It's about protecting powerful people who want certain information to come out. The judge has now forced DOJ to actually do its job. We'll see if they comply or if they find new ways totally and obstruct. In a follow-up live stream, Crockett went even further. He warned everyone to understand what this judge's ruling means. It means a federal court looked at DOJ's excuses for why they can't release information and said, "This is nonsense." It means the chaos and incompetence I described wasn't exaggeration. It was reality. And it means that Pam Bondi's claim that everything was being handled professionally was, to put it bluntly, alley. She continued, her tone becoming more serious. But here's what really concerns me. If they're this disorganized and defensive about the Epstein files, what else are they screwing up? What other investigations are being mishandled or buried? What other instances of corruption or abuse are being protected by incompetence, masquerading as process? Because I guarantee you, the Epstein situation isn't unique. It's just Theon that's gotten enough public attention that they can't completely hide the dysfunction. The political fallout extended beyond just the Epstein files issue. Several Republican senators had been planning to praise Bondi's performance in her first months as Attorney General quietly shelved those statements. Some GOP members started privately, expressing concern that Bondi is becoming a political liability, that their defensive responses and the obvious at DOJ were undermining the administration's claims of competent governance. For Jasmine Crockett, the entire episode became another example of direct communication and refusing to accept obvious nonsense could force accountability even when traditional law-first mechanisms were being blocked. She'd used a live stream, a medium that political traditionalists often dismissed as unserious too. Relegations that federal courts subsequently validated. She'd mocked and challenged an attorney general. She was untouchable, and that mockery had revealed real incompetence needed to be addressed. In her most recent public statement on the matter, Crockett offered both a summary and a warning. Pam Bondi wanted everyone to trust her, to believe she was handling sensitive matters professionally, to give her time and space to do her job. But when you actually look at what she's doing or not doing, the trust isn't justified. The professional handlingness non-existent. And the time and space she wants is really just cover for protecting people who should be exposed. That's not leadership. That's not law enforcement. That's corruption wearing the costume of justice. And I'm going to keep calling it out until something changes. If this breakdown of how Jasmine Crockett used a live stream to expose Pam Bondi's incompetence and vecos inside the Justice Department showed UI direct communicationators in holding power accountable, hit that like button and subscribe for more analysis of the moments when mockery becomes a tool for oversight. Drop a comment telling us whether you think Bondi is incompetent or deliberately covering up. And share this with anyone who understands that sometimes the truth comes out not through official channels, but through representatives willing to say whatever Yanni else is thinking. Your engagement helps us keep shining light in the dysfunction that powerful people want to keep hidden.